good to be back from the jungle. Did you count all monks here? Anybody got lost in the jungle? You counted or not? Actually, somebody is missing. We did leave somebody behind. And he will walk his way back eventually. So actually one of the monks did not come back straight, so will find his way back on his own, back to Taiping. From Fraser's Hill, not so bad. Still quite a distance. How many kilometers do you guess? 200 plus? Okay. So yeah, I'm happy to report everybody survived. In fact, the first challenge started already even before we arrived. Because in order to get up there on that windy road, well, you'd be sitting in the car and the van is driving us up. The first few months already getting car sick. Having not even arrived in the jungle yet, the first person already sick. Actually had to get out of the car maybe 45 minutes, 1 hour before arrival at our destination. Yeah, had to get out, and then basically we were driving up, the remaining group, and then the plan was to send the car back to pick him up, to give him a bit of rest, he can walk a little bit, and then maybe half an hour, 45 minutes later, we pick him up again. That was the plan. But it never works as you plan. You notice that from your own life? Things are impermanent. Things are difficult to predict. So in this case also, the car was coming down. He was not to be found. Just in a normal road where he's supposed to walk, not to be found anywhere. So they were looking around, coming back. They said they cannot find him. Getting late already, it was around 7ish o'clock already. After 3 hours, they still cannot find. So just before nighttime, 7:30 around about, he walked in. He walked all the way back. It must have been 3 hours plus in the afternoon, the first day. Not even arrived, he already had his first hiking retreat on his own to recover from the car sickness. So, but eventually he arrived, found the place, and was okay. But that was the smallest challenge, you know. The next thing that happened is it was a very rainy first 2 days. And so actually after arriving, we were supposed to find places in the forest where we can put up our mosquito nets, our tents under a tree somewhere, and to also put up a protection from the rain, a fly sheet. Fly sheet is a plastic sheet you put over a string. You can put a string between 2 trees, and then you hang a plastic sheet on top, on the ridge, and then you can tie it to the corners to some trees, so that when it rains, it does not hit directly on your tent or on the mosquito net. So it's actually quite important that you have a fly sheet that extends a little bit beyond your actual tent, so the water doesn't splash in. So we did arrive, and then just trying to find locations. But then the place is a bit like the forest behind SBS. Very slopey. You can't find the flat ground anywhere. It's either going up or going down. But we were fortunate, there was a Burmese caretaker around that area, and so he volunteered, and they asked him to help out to make the ground a bit level. So the place where the monks would sleep on the ground, and he would prepare it a little bit. So level the ground, take out some of the roots from the trees, the smaller ones, the stumps sticking out, otherwise you sleep, you know, and then, oh, what's that? So he helped us a little bit prepare the place. So that also took almost a full day, and for some of us even half a second day, until all 13 places were set up, together with ground sheet, fly sheet, and everything. But then actually it was quite okay, you know. What do you think for these 2 weeks? What was the main challenge for the monks? Any bears, tigers? No, actually not. Actually, maybe 2 things. I think the first one we encountered was actually the climate, because it was quite cold. It's a bit like Genting Highland, just no casino. So it's quite cold, especially overnight. So it can go down to 10 degrees. So it's pretty cool and chilly. And you can imagine we're camping outside. So no walls to protect us, no heating system other than our ropes. And we had some blankets along, but that also only takes you so far. So it was cold and also humid and wet because it was raining for the first 1.5 days a lot. So the rain would come in and some of the sheets they have been putting up were leaking. So you think you put up a protection. Actually, we still had those fly sheets from before COVID. The last time when we did our jungle retreat in Sabah, in Imbak Canyon in Sabah area. At that time, we had for everyone quite nice fly sheets. But then also, over time, a hole can develop, maybe a branch falling, things like that. So many of the fly sheets, when we put them up, they already were quite thin and had some holes. So when the first rain came, next day in the morning, asked the monks, how are you doing? Everything okay? I can see already from their ropes, all wet. So the fly sheets were actually not so secure as we hoped. So then on the second day, third day, we figured out we have to put double layer because one layer would still seep through, and then we took 2 layers, and then eventually everybody figured out how to stay dry overnight. It would still be cool and fresh, but no more rain splashes. That's the most important part. You prefer cool or hot weather? Cool. Okay, next time you can come along. Actually, both. If it's too cool, also not so good. If it's too hot, also not so good. But actually, for cool, you can protect yourself a bit more easily. Yeah, you can just put a blanket, or 2 or 3 or 5. But for hot weather, what are you going to do? Once you have taken off your clothes, even not all, there is no thing how you can make yourself more cool than that. There are some limits. Whereas with cool weather, there's more things you can do to counter that. So that was the first challenge the monks were greeted. And then over time in the morning, we would come together. There was a group of supporters who would provide food. Maybe you've seen some pictures already. Later we will post something on SBS, maybe Facebook or somewhere. And so they would prepare food. They were very wonderful. They put in a lot of effort. Almost luxurious for us in the forest, and suddenly have every day this big buffet. But nonetheless, so in the morning when we come out, we'll be meeting everyone, because we're not staying together. We are sprinkled out in the forest all over the place. Actually, no 2 places should be so close that we can see each other. So we're not like a campsite together. So one person here, the next one over there, another one here. So even if you go to your tent or to your mosquito net, we try not to pass any other monk's place, so that everybody has a lot of seclusion, private practice, and you feel almost like being alone in the forest. Of course, you know somewhere not too far in the distance the other monks are, but don't see each other, you don't hear each other. So in the morning we would check in a little bit. How was your night? Bhante, no sleep. Either because so cold, some people shivering. The next one hearing some sounds in the forest, some cracking of the leaves and the twigs. You never know what is coming. So the first night or 2, people are quite alert because you're not familiar with the sounds until you know it's just a squirrel or some small animals. And another challenge then turned out some areas had actually a lot of ticks. Ticks, very tiny. Some of them, they're so small, you can barely see them. And they like to come up, usually from the legs. So one monk particularly, his place, I don't know why, maybe a tick nest. And so one morning he came, Bhante, I have 30 ticks, 30 on one leg only. Other leg also 30 ticks. My goodness. And you know, the tick bites, here also SBS sometimes we have, it can be quite itchy afterwards. It's not like a mosquito bite, you take it off or you kind of remove it and then after 10 minutes it's gone. Tick bites you can feel for a week or longer. Actually, I also have quite a few. You can still see some of my, my injuries and bites. It's like a warrior coming back from war, you know, you can show your scars. But actually I was not the one, it was another monk who had the 60 tick bites. So the others, every now and then, they get a tick bite, but not so bad. So, now I've told you all the difficult things, but of course there were also some wonderful experiences of being in seclusion, around only forest, nature. Sometimes we would go on a walk, on a hike, to a waterfall, or some trekking trails in the forest, and then just spend some time there, hiking alone. Very enjoyable. Just being out in nature, the simplicity of it. You feel almost like another animal, you know. We are also not so different. Once you've taken away our buildings, our electronic things, you realize you're not so different from the monkeys and or the other animals in the forest. Trying to survive, find food, find shelter, really down to the basics. So it's a good reminder actually how little you really need to be happy. Because actually we didn't have any of the comforts, no fans running, any of those, no heating system. Yet, many of us had a very good time. It felt very comfortable, very pleasant. Yes, there were some physical challenges, but body is one thing, the mind is another. And if you train the mind, if you practice mindfulness, concentration, wisdom, patience, you can handle many of those smaller and minor discomforts. And you're rewarded with a peaceful state of mind that are maybe even easier to get in these more secluded environments compared to our very active, busy lifestyle, especially for you out in the world. But even in monasteries, it can also be more activities because we have to maintain the place, we have to clean. In the forest, there's nothing to clean, right? What are you going to clean? The leaves on the tree? Nothing to clean. So many monks discovered a love and a passion for nature and for simplicity and a conducive lifestyle. Actually, one of our monks, he was hiking so much. It was not a hiking retreat, you know. It's not like Bhante. Any one of you went to Bhante hiking retreat before? Yeah, some of you. So basically every day you're on tour. But actually our place, our style is a bit different. We just go into the forest and then we stay there. If somebody wants to go on a hike during daytime, it's okay. But it's not a hiking retreat. So it's mainly living in the jungle retreat, not so much about the hiking. But there are some hiking trails in the surroundings there, Fraser's Hill. And you can explore those, and then they're even marked out. But some of them are actually closed because they're not maintained on a regular basis. Some are, others are closed. It would be too dangerous to go. But anyway, there are signs, so you know this trail I cannot go. The others are quite safe. Sometimes also our monks in the afternoon, they go on a hike, follow the trail. One time also, one of our monks, he came back to the meeting place, almost scared, like a scared animal. He came said, "What happened to you?" "I went to this hike, I almost died." "You almost died?" No joke, you know. I asked, "How? That hiking trail is supposed to be quite okay." He said, yeah, I went to this, and then turn left, and then turn right. And then there was this bamboo, big old bamboo trees, you know, they're leaning against each other. And then sometimes they fall. So it was already leaning over the path where he was trying to walk. So sometimes you have to go down a little bit, go underneath. And then he might have slightly touched that bamboo, that fallen bamboo, big ones, you know. And then suddenly, there was 3-4 bamboos leaning on each other, and then all of them crumbled just here underneath. And he just barely came out. He said if that all falls on him, there's no way he would survive that. And also he was alone there. So he came back completely scared. One day I almost died. I asked him, where did it happen? And showed me on the map. And then we found out on the map, it's actually a blacklisted trail. You're not supposed to go there. He didn't see the sign. Actually, another monk also went to the same area on the previous day. And he said, no, there's a sign there. Didn't you see? He didn't see. The sign was on the ground, maybe not so visible. So he thought that trail is open. But actually, for a long time, nobody went. So that's why there were the fallen trees there and things like that. So he escaped. Nothing serious happened, but he was what was close. Wow, okay. So in the end, everybody made it. And then on the way back again, the same as when going there in the car, 2 people, 3 people, almost having to. The one who got out last time, he already walked. He already knew there's no way of driving. But then also 1 or 2 others, they also felt car nausea. Do you have that also sometimes? You know that? Especially when you go in a bus, isn't it? When you go in a larger vehicle, if you don't sit in front, the front seat is quite okay. But if you sit somewhere at the back bench, more jolting and moving, like on a ship. So many challenges, but also many nice experiences of being out in the open, the simplicity, also learning to cope with the difficulties, or trying to find a safe place where you can camp, especially for those monks for whom it was the first time, also for them to learn when you can put up your mosquito netting somewhere in nature, where to do it. So make sure, when you're under a tree, check first the branches. If you already see some dead branches up there, don't camp there. Because when the first wind, or stronger wind, or a little storm comes, all the branches will fall down. So if you already can see dead branches up there of a big tree, don't camp there. Like in Malaysia also, you wouldn't camp under a coconut tree, right? Or a durian tree. Even you like durian, but I wouldn't camp there. So these kind of things also is a way for us to show and explain and share with each other, so that later when the monks go individually in the forest, they know what to look out for. Or when you put up your mosquito net on the floor somewhere, okay, check the floor first. Just make sure there is no ant or termite nest where you put your ground sheet, because before long they will come out and they will have your lunch with you. But not just that, also important to consider when it does rain. Maybe now when you put up your things it does not rain, but later it could rain. Where will the rainwater go? So you can look at the surrounding, at the slope, and you think first, when the rain comes down, where would it shoot down? From which direction? So you make sure that you're not camping somewhere where there's this, nice and hollow. Yeah, because this is where the rainwater from the mountain comes down every time. That's why it's nice and smooth and hollow. So if you camp in this kind of shape, something like that, maybe it's nice at first, but once the rainwater comes, you're in the middle of a lake, a small puddle. So these kind of things can happen. So you make sure that you are somewhere either flat or maybe even a bit up and down, a smaller area that is a little bit elevated, so that the water can run down on the sides and not accumulating in the middle. So these kind of things are important to look out for, and it's also something that is an opportunity, since we go as a group, where the more experienced monks we can share with the newcomers, so then they also can get these experiences, and then in future also they know how to do that on their own. So it's many learning experiences. The thing from your own life, even though sometimes things are not easy and convenient, but sometimes that's the situations where you learn the most. Where you learn the important life lessons from overcoming some difficulty, isn't it? It's not always by avoiding difficulty, but sometimes you put yourself deliberately maybe in a challenging situation, and then you figure out, okay, how can I cope with that? What to do next? And then in this way you learn almost the most. So I think for many of us, also was a very good learning opportunity and experience, on top of having the wonderful opportunity to be in the forest, nature, simplicity. And at the same time, now when we come back and you go to your kuti, you can open the water tap, turn on the electricity, you know how to appreciate. Because now with the contrast, after a few weeks in the forest, even a simple kuti like those in SBS, they're not luxurious. But even that can feel quite, wow, safe, no rainwater splashing, clean. Outside you're always something dirty, it's never perfectly clean. finally you can take a shower and everything is clean, tidy. And so you can appreciate again also the smaller comforts that we have. And why do we have them? So that our life is not so challenging that it constantly requires your full attention just to survive, but that you can dedicate also your time to the practice. And so the challenge should be enough so that you're not complacent, but also not so challenging that you're most of the time thinking about how can I survive for another day. So also a matter of balance. So it was just a little bit of a summary from our last 2 weeks. And probably over time you'll hear another story or two coming up. But I think that should be enough for now as a small summary.